1460 WVOX.
Stay tuned now for Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome, everybody, to Westchester Eye on the Radio. I'm Peter Moses, my co-host John Sharan and Ardina Seward. How are you guys today?
Doing well, doing well.
Experiencing winter, finally.
Yeah, you say it like it's a good thing.
Well, I'm not happy about it, but my feeling is that we're, actually, when you get right down to it, Peter, we should be smiling because pitchers and catchers report in less than a month.
I wrote that on Facebook the other day.
Oh, okay.
So we have an interesting show today. Ardina, how are you?
I'm well. I'm happy to be here today because I think this is going to be a great, informative, exciting show.
You mean you're going to have some energy today?
I always have
energy.
Wow.
So one of our guests today, when he gets angry, he gets his hackles up because that's his last name.
I've never heard that.
I'm sure you've never heard that before. Yes, I can't really hear you, but I'm sure you're on. Okay, good. We have Stu Hackel in studio today and andJodie Reaver. And on the phone, we have a friend of ours.
Lou Young, Lou Young, intrepid reporter who's now, Lou is still a reporter.
Well, he still, and he did some PR on the Attorney General's campaign. How are you, Lou?
I'm fine. I'm at the airport, actually.
I understand that. I understand that you're the only Larchmonter on this show today.
Oh, okay. All right. That I will give you that perspective then.
Yeah. Why don't we? The reason for this show is that there is a guy living in Larchmont with his family named Gavin McInnes, and he's the founder, or he claims he's not the founder, and he claims he's not a member of the Proud Boys, but he is. And after he's claimed he hasn't been, he's gone on on his own area, has his own podcast, and he talks to people on the far right, and he acknowledges. And lately, the neighbors have been putting signs on the lawns in that neighborhood, basically denouncing hate. And he and his family have been personally affronted, and that it's unsafe now for their children and for his wife. His wife has made some underhanded remarks as well in the last few days from what I've read. And I'm wondering, Lou, as a Larchmont person, how do you feel about having this guy as a neighbor?
Well, first of all, I didn't even know he lived in town until he publicly complained about the signs, which were there long before I was aware he was. And the signs, you should know, are hate has no home here. They're all over the country. People have them. It essentially says that we welcome all sorts of people, and we're not anti-immigrant. And it's probably more of a democratic thing. I'm told that you can get the signs at the Hispanic Resource Center in Mamaroneck. They seem to have a benign political message. Certainly not aimed at this particular person. And I think this just smacks of somebody trying to make it all about them when it's not. I mean, I took a ride by this guy's house last night. I didn't see any signs in his immediate vicinity. There are in the town, and some people have them out, and some people don't. And I don't think it's about him. I really don't.
Have you ever met him?
Maybe. I don't know. I've seen pictures of him.
What I mean is, you've never had a conversation with him where you discuss any of the issues?
I heard about this from the Huffington Post, from my wife via the Huffington Post, and I think the Daily Beast. I
saw both of those too. Yeah.
And the idea that's what makes national news, is interesting, because that's why he spoke out about it. It's really not about him. I haven't heard anybody talk about him. I didn't know he was in town. I really didn't. And there's another. It's just not an issue.
He's not an issue. The issue is the issue.
The issue is he's looking for attention, I think. I mean, otherwise, why bring it up? I mean,
well, now that you know he's there, are you uncomfortable with someone like that living in your community? Because I mean, Larchmont is a pretty open, friendly place.
It is, but I'm sure there are people here Well, I know there are people here that there are the people here I like, and the people here I don't care for. I mean, it's not about that. I mean, it's not a homogeneous place in that respect. I mean, he's a rich guy who lives over by the water and next to a bunch of other people who have means who live in the same community, and some think one way and some think another way. And I think the tenor of the community is mostly Democratic and mostly liberal, but I certainly know that not everybody in town, has
kumbaya moments on a daily basis. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I've had conversations with people about politics, and it's not, they're not all the same ilk. This guy's just looking for attention, I think.
I think that's true. We're going to be going to break in a little while, and Lou, you'd have to be waiting on hold for 7 or 8 minutes if you're willing to do that. Great. But when we come back, we're going to talk to Lou, hopefully, Stu and Jody about hate groups in Westchester County. It's not something that you hear a lot about. I mean, having grown up in Portchester, where the very few people with names similar to mine growing up, most of them, their names ended in vowels, and they didn't like people whose names didn't end in vowels. But hate groups I didn't think really existed. But we're going to come back after this long Fox News break on WVOX, WVOX.com. This is Westchester Eye on the radio.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to Westchester Eye on the Radio, our weekly discussion of issues relating to Westchester and the surrounding area. I'm John Sharan along with Peter Moses and Ardina Seward, and today we're talking about something that I don't think a lot of people in Westchester are aware of. We're talking about hate groups and groups that are out there to make sure that they are stopped and that they know that there's a lot of opposition to them. We have guests on the line.
And also identified.
Okay.
Not just stopped, but identified. Because I don't think most of us, do you know that there are hate groups in Westchester?
I did not. That's why I just said would be surprised.
I knew that there was some on both sides of the aisle. There's some black hate groups that are not violently, but anti-Semitic, and there's also hate on the other side.
I don't think too many Jews are anti-Semitic. Anyway, let's move on. John, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I haven't identified our guests. On the telephone, we have Lou Young, who's well known for his TV newscasting experiences, but also in the studio we have Stu Hackel and Jody Reaver. And we spoke with Lou in the first portion, so we'll bring Stu and Jody into the conversation now. How did you folks get involved with creating a group that points out who these people are and shows that it's not really something that we want to have here in Westchester?
Well, the short answer is we're both members of the Greenberg Human Rights Committee, and there had been a outbreak in the last 2 years of hate incidents and leafleting, flyers distributed promoting white supremacy, and we've counted about 40 of those in Westchester that we verified in the last 2 years. And 17 of them happened in Greenberg and the villages of Greenberg.
Wow.
So we were pretty sensitized to the situation.
None of them were some of them at schools?
Yes.
Public schools or
public
colleges?
schools and private schools, both.
Nursery schools, swastikas on nursery school doors.
At Mercy College, at Purchase. Well, Purchase is not in Greenberg.
Not in Greenberg, yeah.
So when you saw it happen, what did you folks do?
Well, one of the things we did was we were involved with a few rallies that we had in Hastings, and a very large rally we had at the Woodlands Temple in Greenberg. It's 700 people there. And I would say that we had a really good response in the community. And then after a swastika was painted in Ardsley on a street sign, things changed for us. And we wrote a letter to the county executive, and we asked the county to get involved and help us really identify who these people were. We felt it was important for the people of Westchester to know who's doing this. Why are they doing it?
This is when Astorino was in office?
No, this is since
Okay,
Mr.
George
Latimer.
Yeah, George, I'm sure will try to do something about it Jody, how did you get involved? Because of the swastika incident in your town of Ardsley?
Well, no, actually. So I'm part of the Human Rights Committee with the town of Greenberg. But I will say, after the swastika was found in Ardsley, we had written letters in the past when there were swastikas found, just basically statements saying, this is offensive, we don't want this here. And after that swastika, Stu and I had a conversation and decided at this point in time, we need to do more than a statement. So we did write a letter to the county executive asking for the county to have a comprehensive look at hate incidents and formulate some sort of a plan where they keep track of the incidents that are occurring.
Doesn't the ADL do that already?
So the ADL keeps track of certain incidents if they're reported, but they're not keeping track of incidents that are reported by law enforcement or to law enforcement, right?
Just report it to them, pretty much.
I didn't realize that.
And how cooperative has law enforcement been with logging cases?
Well, it's a pretty mixed bag. I mean, Jody can speak to this a little more, but I mean, I can say just, from the outset that there's 45 different municipalities in Westchester, and some are more diligent about it than others.
Lou, what's your experience with this? Being you're a Westchesterite and a news person.
Well, I'll tell you, it's not new, because the first time I ever laid eyes on Larchmont, it was as a TV reporter covering a swastika on the front door of the synagogue. So, and of course, everybody says nothing like that ever happens here, but of course, things like that happen everywhere. And I find it to be a persistent presence, and I think what you're seeing at the moment is just the feeling that some people have permission to vent feelings that they had not been so comfortable expressing before. And that comes even in private conversations with people. I mean, I've had words with people, recently, over comments they've made, and I just think that the general tenor in the country is such that people feel permission to vent their prejudices, and it's just is the way it is now. Is it more prevalent? I don't know. I think it's always been with us.
Well, there's no question about that, and it's there has been at least an element of it in Westchester for decades. I'm not going to go into my own experience too deeply, but I missed a football practice once for Yom Kippur, and the coach the next day, the Italian-American coach, said all Jews, Muslims, and Hindus have to carry in the tackling dummies, and I had to carry in 11 tackling dummies. Not one of my teammates came to my defense. Not one of my teammates offered to help. None of them ever said anything to me until our 40th reunion, when I went up to my wife and said to her, did you ever hear the story about Peter and the tackling dummies and missing practice for Yom Kippur? And I don't know if she believed the story before that, because it didn't make any sense. It was crazy, but it did happen. And so for me, hearing this, I know what it feels like to have somebody hate you on the basis of the fact that you're not one of them. And the people in the room here, I mean, Stu, I don't know if you experienced that. I know that Ordina, as an African-American, has experienced that. Jody, you grew up on a farm, and I doubt you met too many people of different ethnicities in your town of 12,000 in northwestern Illinois.
In her youth.
In your youth. I meant in your youth. Yeah.
No, actually, there was a pretty large Mexican-American population in my town. So for a variety of reasons, mainly because it's historical, but mainly the steel mill actually went down to Mexico at one point to recruit people to come back up to work in the steel mill in my town. But having said that, it was very specific, right? Everybody had very similar experiences. And
Stu, you grew up with that?
I grew up with it, sure. And mostly after I left the city and moved to New Jersey, I was Stu the Jew for some of the people who knew me.
I was thinking that very phrase, but I wasn't going to say it. But we're gonna move on. John, you want to take us out?
We are, and right now you're listening to Westchester Eye on the radio here on WVOX 1460 AM and heard worldwide at WVOX.com. Today we're talking with three guests: Lou Young on the phone, Stu Hackel and Jody Reaver in the studio, and they're all talking about how they are battling hate here in Westchester. We'll be back after a brief Fox News break with more discussion about that. So remember to stay tuned and keep your dial set to WVOX 1460 AM.
Turn now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us, folks. You are listening to Westchester Eye on the Radio. We are into our next good half hour. I am Ardina Seward, along with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and our guests today are Stu Hackel, Jody Reaver, and we are talking about...
And Lou Young.
And Lou Young. I forget my boy Lou, who is hanging there on the line. No disrespect intended, Lou. I love you.
Jeez.
So we are talking about hatred and racism in Westchester County, and I would
anti-Louism.
I would like to read you a quote from Gavin McInnes after his visit to Yad Vashem Museum,
Pick the clean one.
Museum in Israel. He says, "I felt myself defending the super far-right Nazis just because I was sick of so much brainwashing, and I felt like going, well, they never said it didn't happen. What they're saying is it was much less than 6 million, and they starved to death and weren't gassed, and they didn't have supplies."
Wow.
Obviously,
He's been reading different books than most historians.
Holocaust denial is a typical
Right.
tactic of hate groups. I mean, there's nothing secret about that.
So, Jody, what is it that you're trying to do right now? We were at the break. You started discussing your treatise, your platform speech. So, what is it exactly?
I think what we'd like to see from the county per se is we would like to see the county track hate incidents as they occur, because there are hate incidents that occur in schools that we don't know if they're being recorded, right? And
schools don't identify them. They don't do anything with them. They leave them insulated.
And it depends on the school, right? There's no uniform approach to tracking hate incidents or recording hate incidents.
Schools don't like to go to the police.
What they would do is they would call the police, and then the police would decide whether or not they want to record it. And some police departments will, and some police departments won't. There's no uniform approach because there are 45 municipalities in the county of Westchester, and each law enforcement entity has their own practices. And I can say I've spoken with law enforcement officers who are fantastic and absolutely record. At the same time, we don't have a comprehensive database of hate incidents as they have occurred across the county.
To other places?
I don't know. I can't really speak to that, to be honest. I mean, there's a difference between hate crimes and hate incidents, and so hate crimes are categorized and those are tracked. We're specifically talking about hate incidents, so swastikas etched on a bathroom stall that you can imagine if you're a student going to school and you see a swastika on a bathroom stall. The purpose of that swastika is fear and intimidation. And maybe that's not exactly what's going through the head of the person who etches it there, but that's one of the outcomes of it. And potentially then those...
I guess it depends on your personality. When I would see that, I'd try to find out who did it and beat the crap out of them, but that's just me.
But I think it's really important to try and figure out what's happening across our county, where it's happening, and then focus our education efforts on those communities so that we can respond to hate with an attempt to create a more, this sounds a little euphoric, but a more loving society, right? Where we can understand that people have differences and we can live together with differences, in community with one another with differences, learning about our differences and also celebrating those differences.
Now, if some of our listeners want to get in touch or join an organization like yours, is there a contact information or a website or a phone number that people can reach out to?
We have a Facebook page, the Greenberg. It's Greenberg NY Human Rights Advisory Committee, but it's really for people who live in Greenberg. And I think that, however, most of the municipalities, and we're in touch with a few of them, a lot of municipalities in the county, you'll find they have a grassroots group like ours.
What's it called, Greenberg NY?
Greenberg NY Human Rights Advisory Committee. We're an official committee of the town of Greenberg. But there's lots of grassroots organizations throughout the county of Westchester, and a search for them will probably turn up one in your town or your village.
Well, what's being done? I have a two-part question. What's being done, number one, to educate the kids in school? Because what's happening now in the Larchmont, Mamaroneck, basically Westchester County demographic, is that there are a lot of new immigrants, people coming from Middle Eastern countries, people coming from Spanish-speaking countries, and this has been a phenomenon that.
And from Asia.
And from Asia. This is a relatively new phenomenon for Westchester. So how are people being made to feel comfortable in the community? How are traditional Westchesterites being made aware of the culture of people coming from outside of Westchester?
Well, that's not something that is really being done on a consistent basis. Again, there's certainly individual organizations doing this, but one of the things we've asked of the county, and the County Human Rights Commission has begun to undertake this, is to think about how to get that done. In the face of a hate incident, how do we respond by getting educational resources into the affected area and into the community where this happens? It's something that we've proposed.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and we proposed it when you sent our letter to Mr. Latimer, and fortunately he did turn that over to the Human Rights Commission, and they're working on that. So I think that's a step in the right direction.
Well, Lou is a professional communicator, and so I'd like to ask Lou, what is it that people can do more of? What other things should they be doing? What kind of groups should be started outside of Greenburgh and throughout Westchester County? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you that I am aware of, and before I referred to the Hispanic Resource Center, it's not called that anymore. I can't recall what it is called, but it's in Portchester.
It's community.
I happen to know that the Junior League of Westchester County had a great program there called Project Madras, where they took these new immigrant women, mothers and wives, and treated them to a dinner, waited on them. And for many of these women, it was the first time that anybody had ever waited on them. And then while they were eating, a meal prepared by these suburban volunteers, they would be schooled on their rights and what can happen and what can't happen. And, he's not allowed to beat you, and you can call the police, and you won't be deported, and all that sort of stuff. And that's the kind of work that's required to let people know that they are in fact welcome, to tell them they're welcome, to ask them if they're they're working towards citizenship, to work with an immigration attorney and trying to help people get jobs so they can put down roots and stay here. That's the kind of thing people can do. It's not a matter of just not hating; it's a matter of literally welcoming your new neighbors.
Let me ask you, all three of you, one question. You can each answer it any way you want. Do you think this is getting better in Westchester or getting worse?
Well, it's certainly not getting better. I think that, and as Lou said earlier, people feel a license to spew hate now that they didn't feel before. They feel like it's permitted. And that's really, the culture has changed in that regard. So I wouldn't say that, if that's a move for the worse, and I think we could think it is, then it's not getting better.
Jodie, how about you?
I would say that there are certain population groups that have always felt hate against them. And I'm a female, so certainly I have experienced misogynistic viewpoints and behaviors. But I would say, I can't really speak to it, to be quite honest.
Well, I will dissent and suggest that perhaps it is getting a little better because living in Larchmont for 20 years now, I have seen more people of color who actually live there than before, and that's due to the affordable housing that was built over by the railroad tracks at the threat of Justice Department intervention. But
and you'll have to hold it there, Lou, because we have to take another break. You're listening to Westchester Eye on the radio here on WVOX 1460 AM and heard worldwide at WVOX.com. I'm John Charan along with our Dina Seward, and we'll be back right after this.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Charan, and our Dina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to the final quarter hour here of Westchester Eye on the Radio. I'm John Charan along with Peter Moses and our Dina Seward. And today we're talking about the presence of hate in Westchester and what can be done to stop it. And I know that there's an event coming up in the spring that can enable people to contribute and to support anti-hate situations. So, Jodie Reaver, why don't you tell us a little bit about what that event is?
Okay, so I live in Ardsley, and this is we are having a community dinner in Ardsley for Ardsley residents at the end of January, actually. It's a result of some high school students coming to a committee that I co-chair with Hirel Mehta, and it's a multicultural committee in Ardsley. And the students asked us to come up to support them in their desire to create a community dinner to respond to the swastika on a street sign in Ardsley. And so people are being invited to go to host houses, have dinner, talk about what we can do about hate in our community, how we can develop a community response to hate, and then we'll report back at the community center after the dinner at individual houses. So far we have about 35 people signed up for this dinner, and I think it's a nice way for us to have substantive conversations about what hate means when it happens and how we can respond as individuals.
Has anything, we've talked a lot about, planning these things. Have any of these activities actually taken place to try to show a united front against hate? Has anything happened yet?
Yes, so we also had a Holy celebration, which is a celebration of spring. Mm-hmm. We had over 150 people attend that last May. Mm-hmm. We had a conversation about Islam and Muslims and misconceptions regarding Islam and Muslims with Daisy Khan. And we had over 100 people attend that, both students and community members. So we are trying to have conversations that are serious, and also we are trying to have fun celebrations of different cultures and practices so that our community comes together for both fun and also serious conversations.
This is a terrible segue, but I'd like to go from peacemakers to people who want to reverse that. Identity Europa, which is responsible for a lot of the signs and the attempt to recruit in Westchester. So I don't know, either you or Jodie, Stu, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I think that you're right, Ardina. That in fact, there's a new map that Southern Poverty Law Center just put out this weekend. Jodie sent me the link. I was really excited to see it, where they're actually showing which groups are the most active throughout the country. And in Westchester and in most places in the country, Identity Europa is a relatively new group, and they're the model of the alt-right hate group, where they try to present themselves as acceptable. And, we're not really, we're not tattooed up. We're not, talking about murdering people. We're not talking about genocide. We're not talking about, making hate a violent enterprise. We're talking about creating an identitarian society. Now, when you unpack that phrase, identitarian, it means white people identifying with white people and having white people run and be the dominant and only real cultural and political force in the United States.
But in an anti-immigration era, or shall I say that the president is fostering an anti-immigration era, how do you counter that? Alt-right movement?
Well, I think the things that Jodie's talking about. I think any activity, whether it's the kind of dinners that you're having locally in Ardsley, whether it's the signs on the lawns in Larchmont, whether it's community rallies that have taken place throughout Greenburgh. Identity Europa was active up in Croton in the summer and came back again. Their response was after they put up their little recruitment posters is the people in Croton tore them down and put their own posters up saying that, no, this is a community that we embrace love. So, it depends on, each individual community and how they want to respond. But I think in each of these cases, what is paramount and what really is on display is that we're demonstrating throughout the county that there is no place for hate in Westchester, that we're not going to tolerate that sort of anti-human activity and that sort of prejudicial way of thinking and living. It's not what we're about. I mean, we've certainly had this problem throughout our American history. We know that. We have terrible problems still today. We know that. The African American community is suffering on a daily basis to the point where it's almost like, I think the phrase that we've heard is wallpaper. It's just so common, the prejudices that African Americans face, we don't even think about it twice anymore. We know the immigrant community is continually being affected. They don't even report because they're afraid if they report, they're going to be found out, to some of them to not be documented, and they're the ones who are going to get in trouble. So whatever is done to show that there's no place for hate in Westchester works for us.
And before we go any further, Stu, why don't you repeat the Facebook page in case people want to check that out again?
Sure. It's the Greenberg NY Human Rights Advisory Committee, and we can be contacted through that. And if somebody who lives in Westchester and wants to get in touch with the group in their village or their town, and we know the name of somebody, I can refer you to them.
And I'll post the info on the Westchester Eye on the Radio Facebook page for anybody who's interested. I should have it up within the next 24 hours or so. So that'll give you the contact information. It'll also be an archive of the show. How has clergy helped at all in this anti-hate movement?
Sure. I mean, the original things that we were doing, around the incidents in Greenberg, we had a terrific outpouring of clergy men and clergy women of all denominations. Our good friend Doris Dalton, who's the head of the County Human Rights Commission, is also a clergywoman, and she's very active in this area as the head of the MLK Institute. There's a lot of clergy, and I think and those contacts that we're making are expanding all the time.
And after the rally, I guess it was a rally in Charlottesville, we did hold a rally with the Woodlands Temple, and there were over 600 people who were there at that rally at the Woodlands Temple.
And we're getting into the last precious minutes, I should say, of the show. So, Lou, we haven't heard from you. I'm going to let you weigh in on comments. I have a quick question. It's do you think that lawn signs help?
Well, I think that Mr. McInnes probably is against it.
Lou, are you there?
Lou's gone.
Lou is gone. Lou is probably on his way to his destination. I know he's at the airport. But Stu, so I'll give the question to you.
I jumped in. There's some dead air there, so I
jumped into the breach.
Yeah, okay. I think obviously Mr. McInnes doesn't feel comfortable with them in Larchmont, and I think that's kind of the idea. I think that they want to show that that his way of thinking isn't welcome in Larchmont. And we haven't really talked very much about the Proud Boys and what they are. I mean, this is a hate group, and we don't see them active in Westchester, but they're active in the city, and they've been active on the West Coast. And what they really advocate is political violence. These are like the modern equivalent of the Nazi brown shirts, the SA, who went around, beating up people who didn't agree with Hitler's way of thinking. And that's really kind of what the Proud Boys are all about. And he founded that group, and he advocates that sort of political violence. So for the people in Larchmont to create an atmosphere where he doesn't feel welcome, well, that's kind of interesting to us.
Well, on that note, we can talk about next week's show. It's a tough transition.
Actually, before you do that, I wasn't going to talk the last quarter hour, but I have a feeling that we may be within earshot of Mr. McInnes, and you want to come on here and debate us, you want to come on here and challenge us, you want to come on here and share your point of view and that of your family, come on, Gavin. Come take on an African-American woman of a certain age, John Sharan, who's a lifelong New Rochelle Catholic, and me, a 62-year-old Jewish guy, child of a concentration camp survivor, who loves confrontation. So please feel free to come here anytime you like between 3 and 4 on a Monday. We'll be waiting for you.
And next week's show, Ardina?
Woohoo! I got heart palpitations. Next week's show is going to be about a robot that is actually a psychologist. And we're going to find out if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Oh, yes, it's called Woebot, W-O-E-B-O-T. Don't laugh, folks. If you want to find out more, you're going to have to tune in.
Yeah, by the way, Ardina turned me on to this last week, and it's helping me with some of my anxiety issues.
And we thank Lou Young, Stu Hackel, and Jodie Reaver for joining us today, talking about hate.
On that note, we're all about love on this show, so we'll be back next week. You all have a great week, and we're getting closer to Super Bowl Sunday, and 2 Miami coaches are going against each other in the NFC Championship round. Go Miami.
This has been kind of a wandering podcast. I wanted to focus on hate has no home here, and what a stupid. It's not even virtue signaling. It doesn't mean I hate because you don't. What it means is I hate Trump, and more importantly, it means Trump supporters, Republicans, conservatives, even libertarians, basically anyone who doesn't follow 100% of the crazy liberal tropes that change every day, and it's a new gender and a new bathroom. If you don't support all that shit, then I hate you. That's really what it means. What you're saying when you put that sign up is that you think hate is big. You think there's a pattern of hate. You think hate is on the rise. And that's not true. It's so easy to disprove. Go to a dinner party. Tell everyone there that you're a Nazi, that you hate Jews and you want blacks to go back to Africa. The entire dinner party will gasp and they'll drop their fucking forks. I have no platforms but this and YouTube for now, although I can't monetize it. But I've been declared a witch. And that would be fine if any of it was true. Like if you said Gavin McInnes is a sexist because he thinks women would be happier at home, that's cool. I'd love to fight that fight. Or if you said he's a transphobe because he thinks that there's only 2 genders and most trans people are just mentally ill gays, that's actually a thing I believe. That would be great. But that doesn't sell newspapers. So they've got to do the anti-Semitic, Nazi, fucking racist, bigot shit. And when you base your philosophy on 50% of the country being racist, and they're not, you've got to create racists out of thin air. And that's where we are. And that's what hate has no home here means. It means I create racists out of thin air. And if you have that sign on your lawn, you're a fucking retard. And if you have it in your store, you are stupid and bad at business. You know how many blacks are murdered a day?
By gangs? Yeah.
About 20. About 20 black men are murdered every fucking day. Why doesn't anyone care about that statistic? Or why doesn't anyone talk about prison? And the fact that we have all of these fatherless children going through this prison industrial complex. In a way, it's a form of, as this article said on Proud Boy magazine, it's a form of white supremacy. Because you hold whites to a higher standard and you kind of ignore problems with blacks. You ignore black murder because it's uncomfortable to you. It's kind of racist at the end of the day. These virtue signalers, these social justice warriors, are racist.
Feels like they're saying they don't know any better.
Exactly.
So let them get away with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like blacks. I mean, they're just going to kill each other. Whatever. We can't do anything about that. But white people, now they're superior. So they should be held to a higher standard. I don't like that. I hate has no home here signs. But there's so much I can say about these signs that I don't even know where to begin. Let's just start with the literal translation. What the fuck does that mean? Hate has no home here. There's no hate in your house? First of all, it's not true. There is. You hate Trump. You hate Republicans. You hate conservatives. You hate anyone who likes Trump. So your house is full of hate. It's bursting with hate. But secondly, as far as what you're supposed to interpret from that, I guess it means like I don't have like the Klan in my home. I don't have racism in my house. Yeah, that's redundant. Especially in the suburbs.